Your neighbor tells you about the unstable man in the cul-de-sac who claims to have been abducted by aliens. And then there's the woman in town who claims to see Bigfoot all the time. Your boss, who you greatly admire, confides in you that he has started speaking with his wife daily when he gets home from work. She died 8 years ago. It's hard to believe this stuff, and you write these stories off as overactive imaginations. Are these people seeking attention, or are they a bit unstable? No matter what you think, if you're like me, you walk away wondering, what if that was true? The What If It's True podcast features stories by ordinary people like you and me. Something has happened to them, something so strange they are in agony unless they tell others. My name is Cameron Buckner, and the What If It's True podcast is available at whatifitstruepodcast.com and on all available podcast apps.
Welcome to Beast TV. What was that? You better get a fresh dip and buckle up.
Welcome to Beast TV, and look who we have on here. I see I'm going to need to turn our names on, but these guys over here,
yeah.
I tell you what, I need to. There we go. That's a little better, isn't it, Larry?
Yeah.
You are amongst friends tonight. And we've had a lot of subscribers that has joined us in the past week. And we want to welcome you. We want to welcome everybody else that comes on every week with us. And for our new subs, we just want y'all to know that y'all are family, and we appreciate y'all tuning in. So, Larry, how's your week been?
Man, it's been great so far. It's almost over.
Greg, what you been up to?
Sweating. Lots and lots of sweating. Here in North Alabama, it's been, woo, it's been like the devil's a-hole. I'm talking about it's been horrible.
But, Greg, your sweat keeps people like me from sweating.
I tell everybody I go around spreading cheer and cold air.
And that's a good thing this time of year.
Yes, sir. Big time.
What's Kumbo been doing?
Same thing, sweating, working on the farm, working on tractors, trying to stay cool. I've been going through about 2 sets of clothes a day. I was out there the day before yesterday, and finally about 1 o'clock, 12:30, War Eagle. That's for Jackson Bofen Camp.
I'm just glad Sandy's got you wearing clothes again.
Yeah.
You might take them to town.
Yeah.
My neighbor, yesterday morning, about right after daylight, I was out in the yard, and I didn't have nothing on but my drawers and a T-shirt, my old rubber boots out there walking in the dewy grass and with the dogs. And I looked up, my neighbor across the fence was standing out there in his driveway. He's looking at me like I was some kind of idiot. And I was some kind of idiot out there. Didn't even have my breeches on. I always said, the kind of place I want to live is where I can if I need to, take a leak in the front yard. Don't have to worry about any neighbors or anything. But I was actually down the road a ways from the yard, from the yard. I don't need to go quite so far down the road without on.
Yeah, he'll get re-domesticated before too long. He's still
That's right.
Well, I've been staying up here at the old place. Sandy and I both got the COVID. First she got it, and then she didn't want me to catch it. So I moved. I come up here back up here at the house on the farm, and I've been up here 3 days, and I come down with it, and then she got over it, and I was getting over it, and then dadgum, she had a relapse, and so I've been up here about a week and a half now, 2 weeks. So anyway,
well, you told us a little earlier that you've been doing a little bush hogging, and you kind of saw something yesterday.
Well, I was back on the back of the farm, and Greg and Larry ain't been there because he's antisocial and won't ever come up and do anything with any of us. I don't know how he is, but
free food to get me anywhere.
Yeah. Well, Greg and Mark were down here, about a month ago, I guess, and Spencer and Misty and everything. And we went back there I took them back to the point, where we could look out and look over the river. But on the way there, we passed this big old, Greg, what'd you say, about a 5-acre weed field, something like that?
Yeah, probably 5, 6 at least.
Yeah, probably more like 6, I'd say, more likely 6. But big weed field in it. And normally we try to keep it bush hog, but we hadn't been able to take care of it this year with everything going on. It's growed up. It was literally growed up 7 to 8 foot tall and all kind of weeds and crap like that. So I'm wanting to plant a green field back there, a food plot for the deer. And so I got back there yesterday afternoon, started bush hogging, and I'd gone around the outside perimeter of it a couple of 3 times. And out in the middle of this thing, I had found a couple of great big watered out, rolled down places where it certainly wasn't deer that was bedding down out there. It was big enough that a troop of boogers could have been laid down there. And I'm talking about a place that's maybe 15 feet across, rolled down tight to the ground.
Wow!
Out in the middle of all these tall weeds. But anyway, I had gone down and I was turning at one end, and then going to loop back, and out of the corner of my eye, I caught something pretty good size come hauling butt out of those weeds and off and over into the woods. And when I whooped my head around, it was already in the woods, but it was too tall. I think it was too tall to be a deer, and we don't have any cattle back there. So whatever it was looked to be sort of auburn colored, reddish brown, and we got some that are that size back or that color around here. There's some corn back in there. It's probably close to 10 feet tall in places. And no, we ain't cut it yet. We're going to here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, go ahead and tell Spencer right quick what you was telling me happened while you was mowing.
Well, that's what I was talking about when I was back here mowing.
No, about the rock flying out from the cedar tree.
Oh, when I was mowing on the bad boy tractor.
Yeah.
Night before last, I was mowing out here, and I mowed till probably 9 o'clock at night, with the lights and everything. But this is when it's still good in daylight, about I don't know, about a little after around 7 or so, when you can still see good. And I was mowing down beside the gravel driveway, and all of a sudden here comes about a baseball sized rock comes sailing out from between those cedar trees there that he knows where I'm talking about, and bounced right in front of the mower, and before I could stop it, I ran over it. So I done knocked a divot out of my dadgum booger rock, but I got off the mower and picked it up and turned around and held up, said, "Thank you," and carried over and put it in my pile of booger rocks.
We ought to sell those booger rocks. You'd make a
Yeah.
fortune.
Well,
Yep.
I need to get you one, Mark. I mean, heck, I meant for you to get one while you were here.
Well,
I mean,
I don't know.
pile
4 or 5 years ago, you gave me a rock. I'm not going to say what kind it was, but you did a little writing on it. You gave me and Larry one, and I still got it.
I still got
Larry,
mine.
did I give you one, Larry?
You did. I still got it.
Good. Yep. It was a special kind of rock right there now.
Yeah, it was special.
Greg, I'll give you one, hadn't I?
Oh yeah, I got one.
All right. I try to give everybody. I've messed up the last couple of years. I owe quite a few people some more of those rocks. But anybody that's been out with me in the field or something, been on an outing with me that I ain't given a rock, get the word to me because I owe you one. I'll mail it to you if I have to. It's a special kind of rock I like to give out to people to go out with me the first time.
Or he may show up in his underwear and rubber boots and deliver.
He's gonna be like cousin Eddie. Like cousin
I
Eddie.
can't tell, and I've been out buggering in 43 out of 50 states, and there's still a couple of states here close that I ain't been in buggering anyway. And South Carolina, I've got to get over. I still cannot believe that I ain't been buggering in South Carolina. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just noticed in the live chat right there, my wife said I don't have a rock. Well, she could have got out that night they was throwing rocks at us on the point and just got her one, but I don't think she wanted out of the truck.
yeah, I don't think you could have thrown her out of the truck.
No, I couldn't have melted her down and poured her out of that truck because
Yeah.
her eyes got awful big when them rocks was cutting through the leaves and bouncing around the pickup.
Yeah.
Well,
Sandy-
Greg, tell us about that night. What happened? It was you and Wanda and
It was Coonbow and Sandy. That was the first. That's when he decided he was brave enough to introduce Sandy to us. And it wasn't because he was worried about Sandy. He was worried about what she's going to think about us. we went to Coonbow's and it rocked down that was going to try to get Jimmy Osborne and his wife and a couple more was going to go eat steaks at Coonbow's. He wanted us to introduce us to Sandy. And I went and got some awesome ribeyes. And we went up to his farm, and it was me and my wife, Wanda, and then Coonbow and Sandy, and then Jack Oberkirch come.
Right. Uh-huh.
We just grilled some steaks out there on his deck and had a wonderful supper. And man, had a ball, just us sitting around acting crazy. But it got dark, and he decided that we'd ride out on the point. And like I said, that's where Mark and Spencer and Misty and all of us went here a while back. We rode out there, and there was Tim and Sandy in his truck, me and my wife in my truck, and then Jack drove his Jeep. Well, we'd heard some calls back toward that point before we ever went. We drove up there out on the point and got out, and or I say got out. Tim turned his truck around, and I pulled. We didn't get out. We pulled side by side, my driver's door to his driver's door, and Jack pulled up behind me in his Jeep. Well, he got out, walked kind of between the two trucks. We hadn't been there just a few minutes. I'm talking about less than 5 minutes. And we got hearing something out the passenger side door. And then we heard something out the driver's side door, or actually on the other side of Tim's truck. You hear bipedal walking coming up through the leaves, dried leaves.
Yeah.
And I looked over at one and I said, You're hearing that, right? She said, yeah. I said, that's a booger coming up. And I said, there's one over there and one over here. And I looked at Jack. I said, you're hearing that? And he said, oh, yeah. And Tim heard it. And we were there for a few minutes. Well, then directly behind Jack's Jeep, something come up out there. So we had one on each side and the river in front of me and a booger behind me. And about that time, you could hear the leaves were still green. And it wasn't like something fell out of the tree. From way over here, 25, 30 yards, you hear the leaves ripping. This rock is flying through the tree limbs, and you hear it like clipping leaves and ripping them, and the thing lands like right in front of my pickup, hits the ground and then bounces across, going past my truck and behind Tim's. And I looked over at Wanda and kind of whispered. I said, that was a rock. She said, it come from way over there. I said, yeah, sure did. And we sit there just 10 minutes from the other side. Here one come.
And I asked Sandy, I said, did you hear that, Sandy? And she said, yeah. She said, who threw that? And I said, well, none of us.
I mean, you could hear them coming from way over there, and you could hear them tearing, like ripping through the leaves as they're coming. And one of them landed behind my truck. And then after a little bit, I think we wound up had 3 or 4 thrown at us that night. And we decided
one of them hit the trunk of a tree, and Sandy Sandy heard it coming and saw it hit and then fall to the ground.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's every time I've been to Coonbo's a bunch. Every time I go up there, something goes on. I mean, it just always just like when we went, Martin, Misty, and Spencer, and then my boy was with us that day, and that it still cracks me up because we got there way before dark. It was what, Mark, probably 5:30 in the evening.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we're just all standing up, really just wanting them to go see the point before it got dark because it's one of the prettiest views in North Alabama. You can see like 7 miles down the river to the dam and all that stuff. Just gorgeous. You can watch barges come by and, gorgeous hardwoods.
Yeah, the lake's about a little over a mile and a half wide there.
Yeah, it's massive. And you're up, what'd you say, about 50, 60 feet?
About 50 feet roughly, maybe 55.
So, I mean,
above the water.
You can just see, all these, like basically nearly town on the other side of the river. And, but man, it's gorgeous. But we get up there and we're just standing out. They're walking around looking at Tim's basically campsite where he keeps all the underbrush cut.
Yeah, you forgot to say, Spencer's got the front seat of Greg's truck is piled up with recording gear.
Oh yeah. He had
piled full of recording gear.
He's got all of his stuff. I mean, he's game on at this point. But I think what it is, he's still delirious over that booger rock, so his brain wasn't clicking on all cylinders. Because I mean, it's just like that Lord of the Rings, that Frodo, my precious. But anyway, we got up there and got out, and of course, everybody, we're just talking like we are right now. Everybody's just talking and looking around and talking about the view and what you can see. And Misty, she's going through the edge looking around, and we all get everybody up there to make pictures and stuff. And we were killing time because we were waiting on Sandy to get where we could all go eat supper. And we were going to give her probably about an hour, seems like, but we just killed all this time out on this point, just talking, took a bunch of pictures of all of us. We actually remembered to get pictures of all of us together. Usually we forget that. But anyway, we done our super photo shoot, and we're standing there, and Tim decides it's time to go. We can meet up with Sandy. And what was so funny is Kumbo just like nonchalantly goes, well, I could make a call and let them know we're here. And like everybody just like looks at him, and I knew what he was going to do. And Spencer's like right there in the middle of everybody, and everybody's like looks at Kumbo, and he lays his head back and just makes a call, just hollers. And it was like 3, 2, 1. And like, Mark, 100 yards from us in this timber?
Yeah.
I mean,
about the time the echo quit.
Yeah,
about the echo quit.
About the time his echo quit, that thing screamed back. And it was just like Jaws just went.
And it was loud and it was close.
It was loud and close, yeah. And I looked over. By the time it quit echoing, I looked at Spencer. I said, did you get that recorded? And he looks around up at me and goes, my recorder's in the truck. My recorder's in the truck. That was epic. I wish I just had to record something to film it with to got all that. Not the booger noise. I just wish I could have filmed that.
Well, poor old Spencer. I ended up, I got a little aggravated at him, so I hung him off the bluff by his heels, and we left him there while we went and ate supper.
All that I'm telling you, things like that trip, all these guys that came up. Well, I say all these guys. it was Noble and Spencer and Misty came up, and then Mark Green and Rebecca came, and y'all, that's what this is about to me. I mean, I've been dealing with these things for 20 something years, and I don't go like we was talking about going camping and stuff. I mean, sure, if we go somewhere, we go to LBL, we have some activity, and I've been up there with Coonbo and these guys, and you know, we've had calls and, you know, screams and yells, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But if I wanted to have booger activity, I stay at home. I go to fellowship with these guys and all these other guys. Y'all, it's unreal. Unreal.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny whenever we there was one night me and Misty we were going to head out and do something. We asked Greg if he wanted to go with us. Greg says, "No, y'all go enjoy y'all spook fest."
Yeah. My mind on that. Well, y'all, we got up there at the dadgum. This whole bunch, we get up with our small group. And then praise the Lord, thank y'all for inviting me. That made me feel awesome. Go up there to Daniel Boone. We get up there first night I'm there. This bunch of crayon eaters want to get out there and go up in the middle of a damn graveyard that's 200 years old, stomp around and scream and yell. And I'm not, nope. I'll sit there with Larry Porch at the fire with Mr. Jim. And yeah, we're good right here. I'll stay here. No. I don't do haints and spooks.
Well, you just a little side comment here. You know that you're watching a redneck show when I go to scratch my back and I'm using a rifle magazine.
That's absolutely right.
That's handy.
I first thought that was a hairbrush and just combing the hair on your back. I wasn't sure.
My back is itching, so there was a S&W M&P 15 magazine laying here, and I just grabbed it and scratched my back with it.
Oh, man. But y'all, I can't express the fun that I've had. And guys, look, I'll just be honest with you. I've had in the last 3 months, I've had probably six people that's got podcasts. That's big podcast is reached out to me, wanting me to do their podcasts or shows. Guys, I'm not really, that's not my deal. The reason I got doing these shows with y'all is because y'all made me feel like family, and it got to rocking on me about that I may have what little knowledge I had. Maybe I'd be somebody that's struggling with this stuff like I did, that maybe they could reach out and I'll try to answer some questions for somebody. I'll tell you what I know. Try to explain the best I can to everybody. But y'all, me and Coonbo and Mark Green have talked about, and we're going to try to do it. Well, I don't know where we're going to do it. We may do it. I guess we'll probably do it on his channel. But basically, try to dedicate a show to Bill White. Tall Bronco. Yeah. That man, y'all, wealth of knowledge. I figure that man probably knew as much about boogers as anybody that's ever drawn a breath.
Yes, sir. You're right about that.
He just, I owe such a debt of gratitude to that man for helping me and teaching me a lot of stuff. And he's how I got hooked up with Coonbo. And I mean, y'all, I was lost as Moody's goose dealing with these things. Oh yeah. Yeah. Give me a second, Troy. I'll tell him the comedy part of the show. Brother Troy come up here and hung out with me. He come up last Thursday. And of course I was working wide open, having to go fix air conditioner stuff for everybody. Well, Troy's up here at the man cave. You know, he got a key. He get in anytime he wants to. And I don't know. I thought Coonbo had a key, but I got 2 new ones right over there made because I thought you had one, or at least knew where the old key was. So, but anyway, he got a new key. But Troy's up here, and my brother that's living down here in my other lake place, behind the woods between here and the water, there's a log road, and my brother's heavy duty into archery, and he's got a bunch of bow targets set up. Well, you go through this little scope of woods, and there's a road, an old log road that runs parallel with the river. And my brother's got a whole pile of the big life-size targets, the full-size deer, He's got like a bear and a turkey. He's got a bobcat, but he's also got a big ass honking Black Panther. Well, Troy decides that he's going to be, since his health's been bad and he hadn't been up here in a while, he decides he's going to scope around the old man cave here and see what he can find in the woods for booger sign. Well, apparently he had his pistol on his side. He walks through the trees, and just as he crowns over the hill, he spots this big ass life-size Black Panther that's like in the weeds, which it wasn't really in the weeds because it's out in the road. But from where Troy was, it was a little weeds between him and it. And I think he had one of those number 2 moments almost, because he completely drew his pistol out and is fixing to cap my brother's archery target. I got in from work that evening. He's like, "Tell your damn brother that I just about ventilated his target with a 9mm." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I about shot that damn thing." He said it was down there, and he said, I thought I was fixing to get attacked." So,
Yeah, I was, Greg, when I was down there last, what was it, October a year ago, and when me and Troy was staying down there,
yeah,
I took old Joe out for a walk, and we were walking down that road, and he saw one of those targets down there, and old Joe about had a couple targets. He's ready to tear something up. If I'd have turned loose of that leash, he'd have shredded one of those targets. He was ready to eat it alive.
But guys, if you can't laugh at yourself every now and then, life ain't worth living. You might as well just go on to glory.
Yeah,
That's true.
Hey, Kumbo,
Yeah.
Miss Sherry would like for you to talk about them getting under the trucks when you were part of the program.
The first time I ever had that happen was happened down at a place that we later renamed Armstrong Corner in honor of our buddy James Armstrong, and a pretty wild and hairy encounter that we had down there one night. And but this is before we'd named it that, and me and a guy from Texas and a couple of boys from Georgia, from a Georgia Bigfoot outfit that I'd love to. I don't remember what the name of the outfit is, and I don't remember their names. And I'd like to make contact with those old boys again. But anyway, we went down there, and it was a place where, I'd had good success calling. And anyway, we'd been down there for a while, and what it was, there was wheat. There was spring, winter wheat was planted in all the fields around there, and the wheat was up. This would have been in May, early May, and the wheat was all up about 1.5 to 2 feet tall. It was still green; it hadn't started to turn yet. And we're in on this road, parked on this road. It just went through this wheat field, and we were right near a 90-degree left-hand turn in the road, and it was a through road, and we were right where a scope of woods comes up close to the road, and it'd be the southeast quadrant of this area there. 3 of the quadrants were all wheat fields, and this southeast quadrant was thick woods. So we were sitting there, and we had been looking towards the woods and looking off down to the south in this low bottom that had a lot of activity in it. And I'd been doing some calling, and old Bo was with us, and Bo had got all nervous acting and had jumped up the back of the truck. And in fact, and then he got up on the toolbox and he was all hunkered down, trying to flatten out up there in the toolbox. Well, I decided that I'd let him in. He wanted in the truck. I decided I'd let him in the truck. So I walked around the end of the truck, and as I came around the end of the truck, headed towards the driver's side back door of the truck, the F-250 Super Duty crew cab, all of a sudden, right in front of me, coming out from under the dadgum running boards on my side of the truck, on the driver's side, a dadgum booger, about 7.5 feet tall, come shooting out from under that truck on his belly and jumped up and took off running. And of course, I don't know what happened to Bo, but he about died. But I took off. I hollered, but I took off running after it. And this old other boy named Rick, he took off after it, and the two Georgia boys took off after it. And we go running around that curve right on that booger's tail. And buddy, once he got around that curve, he laid down the smoke screen. He skunked us. The smell was so horrendously bad, it left me and the two Georgia boys bowed over, retching and gagging. The other boy was outside the stench stream, and he was still chasing him. And this old boy, he was fast, but that booger took off and just ran off and left him. And we watched him. He ran up the road. There was a little creek wandered through that field, and there was a little wooden bridge that went over that creek. And that booger goes running up there, and I mean, still up on the road, and he just jumped and stretched out flat and just then sploosh, splashed in that creek. And we jumped in the truck after we quit gagging and everything. We jumped in the truck and ran on up there and looked all over the place, didn't see hide nor hair of it. Now, fast forward probably 3 or 4 years, something like that. And Pat Ranch and there was a whole gang of us had gone down to camp down at what's that horseshoe bend campground down there called, Greg, down on Bear Creek? We camped down at one of the Bear Creek campgrounds. Is that in Winston County or Franklin County?
Was y'all on Big Bear or Little Bear?
Whichever one the horseshoe bend campground is in. And I think
I can't remember.
I think that's Big Bear.
Yeah.
But
that should be Franklin.
When you go back in there off of 247, it's going to be the second one you come to. There's a bigger lake that you cross over the dam, and you go on past that and wander around back in there, and then you come to the smaller one.
Yeah.
The one, the lake that's just real narrow and twists and turns. Anyway, we were camped down there. But anyway.
Troy said Little Bear.
A Little Bear. All right. We had camped down there and we decided to go, we'd had a bunch of activity down there, but we decided one night to go over to this particular park, this particular area on Natchez Trace. We get down there, and buddy, I'm telling you what, you got to drive some back roads to get in there to the where we always parked. And there was a group of there was probably 5 or 6 or 7 trucks. And I mean, it's a big group. But that area down there is one of the few places that I can take a big group, that I know that we'd still have activity, that the boogers are so bold that it won't run them. A gang of 20 people ain't gonna run them off. So we go down there, we start to park, and there's one guy. We all went in, and there's one way in, one way out. So we all went down to the end and turned around and came back and were pointed the way out. Well, this one old boy, he wanted to park his truck down there and leave his truck down there at the turnaround area. He had a wife with him. And we told him, said, no, you don't need to park down there. Get up here park with the rest of us, because I said, there's boogers in that woods there all the time. They'll come out and mess with the truck or get underneath it or something like that. And, oh, no, it'll be all right, because he was driving, and he actually had a very rare truck. He had an S10 crew cab. They made a very few of them right before they quit making S10s, S10 Blazers. And if I remember right, that's what he had. It was a 4-door Chevy S10 pickup. And I could be wrong about it being, it might have been it might have just had the short back doors, but it had a back seat in it. And we told him, several of us told him, no, don't leave the truck down there. You need to come up here and park with the rest of us. No, I want to park down. He'll be all right. All right. We told him, I'm telling you, there's boogers in those woods right there. There's a dadgum swamp right in those trees, and the boogers are right back there all the time. And he wouldn't listen. So they leave the truck there, and he and his wife walked up there where the rest of us were. And we had a lot of activity that night out in this field, this big hay field. And we got on video on on Pat Rance's thermal imager. We recorded on video 3 boogers coming out of the woods on the far side of the field and going from hay roll to hay roll to hay roll. And yeah, Troy says the local moonshiners had been dumping their spent mash out on that road we drove in on. That's one reason the boogers were there. But
that's why Kumbo was there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got some good video of boogers and stuff, and Dan Ricky got a good picture of one that was hiding over the bushes that he walked up to and snapped the camera right in his face and scared poor old Vicky half to death and scared all of us. And we thought Matt Danzig would get his head ripped off. But anyway, so we were there for a while and got ready to leave. So everybody's saddling up, getting ready to leave. Well, this man and his wife walked back down to the truck. She comes up there and starts to get in on the passenger side. And all of a sudden, there's all this god-awful screaming and hollering and jerking. I looked down there, shine a light down there. There was a booger under the truck, had grabbed a hold of her by one of her ankles. And she's a pretty good-sized girl, and she was jerking and jumping and bucking and carrying on. That booger still had a death grip on her ankle. And that damn truck was sitting there going, the poor booger was hanging off the tailpipes and off the bottom of that truck. And the old boy was running around there hollering and everything. This went on for 10 seconds or so, maybe 15, but at least 10 anyway. And eventually, there was enough people turning on lights and running down there that the booger turned loose and shot out from under the back of the truck and hauled ass off back down in that swampy area. And I hate to say this, but his wife left him like just a few days after that. That was not a good experience. She never did forgive him for it. And I she thought that we caused it or something, but and I don't know what the deal was, but it didn't turn out to be a good thing for that family. But that booger was up underneath her truck and grabbed her by the ankle and held on for a while. But,
so
there's
if
two instances that I personally have witnessed of boogers getting underneath people's trucks, and I've heard several other reports of it. So I'm shut up, Greg.
So if you're wanting to pull your significant other in front of a judge, then you need to go boogering with Kubo.
Yeah.
Kubo, Spencer.
Why don't Spencer just come on here and ask some questions?
Yeah. Where's he at?
Hiding.
We got the guts to come on here.
Send him the link. Hey, while I'm thinking about Kumbo, did you right there coming out of Layton? Did you look at that sign I was telling you about?
Man, I have totally forgotten to do that, and I was just through there today.
Really?
And I could have done it if I'd have had my head screwed on straight.
That was strange. Now we've kind of hinted around on Spencer and them show and talked about this, but I don't think we ever told anybody really, or told everybody on here what happened that night after me and Misty, Noble, and Spencer. It was me, Misty, Noble, Spencer, and my son Colt was all in the cab of my truck, and we had left Coonbo's that night, and it was, gosh, Mark, what was it? 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30?
Yeah, every bit.
But we left Coonbo's farm after we'd had a sure enough hoot of a time. But we go through the little town south of where Coonbo lives is what, 10 miles maybe down there?
Nine. It's about 9. Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, we go through this little town, and as you're going out of town, it's the last red light, and it's kind of residential.
The only red light.
Yeah, well, only red light. You got to cross those train tracks. But anyway,
Yeah.
there's a red light down there, and we pull up, and of course, you know, my luck, the red catches us, so we got to stop. We're sitting there, and Mark is in the passenger seat. Misty's in the middle. My son's right behind me, and I'm driving. And Spencer's in the rear passenger seat. And we're just cutting up and having a big time. Well, the light turns green. And I pull straight through the intersection. And probably, Mark, what is it, 75 to 100 yards ahead of us? They're on the right side of the road, on the right side, there's a big yellow sign, and it's instead of being square, it's turned so it's like a triangle, or not a triangle, but what do you call that?
It's a square up on its side.
Yeah, it's a square on its side. It's pointed top and bottom on each side.
Yeah.
Anyway, that sign is a normal height. I'm guessing around 8 footish. On the side of the road, big yellow, one of the big yellow signs, and y'all, on the left side, there's this big giant cornfield, and corn is planted right up with just a few feet of the edge of the road. And then this 2-lane paved road. And then on the right, you got 8-10 foot of grass, and then it's just old growed up hedge bushes. Well, as I pull away, they're all kind of looking at each other, and we're cutting up. And I'm looking ahead. I saw something, just a shadowy something, cross the road. And that thing, when it went in front of that sign, so it was between me and the sign, what really showed up was the entire sign went totally out of vision. It covered the entire sign up when it just streaked across it, and it was gone. And I'm screaming, "Did y'all see that? Did y'all see that?" And they're looking at me like, "What?" I said, "Something just went in front of that sign, and whatever it was covered the whole sign up." And Misty caught it out of the corner of her eye. She saw the sign like disappear because it's a pretty new looking sign, and my lights are really bright on my truck. So it was just glowing like the reflector part of it. And that sign, the whole entire sign blacked out for just a split second as that thing crossed in front of it. And see there, look there. Oh,
I knew that was the case.
Yeah. I pull completely up to the sign, and we take the big flashlight, and we're out the pasture window shining. And it's like the hedgerow kind of stopped right past the sign, but it was like a yard, and then it kind of ducked back the yard behind the hedges. We shined there where we didn't see anything. Well, I put my truck in reverse, and I'm looking in the mirrors, and I'm backing up because it's like 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning. We're the only people out. So I back all the way back to the intersection to the red light, and I back completely through the red light and stop. And they're like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What, where are you backing up?" I said, "I'm backing up to see if I can reenact what we just done, if there's anything that could inhibit my lights on this sign." There was nothing. There's no way anything was just, it was something. Whatever it was, look, it may have been a booger. It may have been some dude taking a stroll. But there was something upright, crossed the road, blocked that entire sign, and went into those hedges. We couldn't, in no way could we recreate what happened. But whatever it was had to be big enough to block out my headlights from even touching that sign. It blocked the whole sign out. And it was creepy as crap. I mean, I can't say, hey, it was a booger and it looked like this, it looked like that. No, whatever it was upright, black, and covered that whole sign.
I'm going to go down there and measure and see how tall that sign was.
Yeah.
So if it blotted the whole sign out, and those signs are pretty good size. I mean,
yeah,
it had to be a big. It couldn't have been a cow or a horse or a deer or anything like that. And it probably couldn't have been a person walking either.
Which, you know, to me, it was plausible that booger come out of that cornfield because, you know, it was, you know, he out of the cornfield and was crossing back across the road. That's all I can come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got a guy that coon hunts out. I've had some out east of Auburn, a ways, over there near the Chattahoochee, over near the state line. But that's another story. But anyway, I lost my train of thought. But you know, that's one of the things I've done where people have seen them cross the road by signs and stuff. Is I go back and measure how tall the top of that sign is above the ground. That'd give you an idea how tall the booger was.
Yeah.
And so if it blocked out all of it, it had to be at least as tall as the top of the sign was. So I can tell you what a minimum height on the booger would have been. So I'll go back next day or so and do that. In fact, I got to go over there tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And shoot.
Tell her.
Yeah, we down there.
Answer Sherry's question right there, Tim.
What does anything? Well, she believes in them now. She's seen and heard enough stuff that she believes in them, and she doesn't know if she wants to actually see one, but but she's not scared to go out with me. But she's been around here enough. She's seen rocks come flying up in the yard, and she's heard them huff at us and growl at us and stuff like that. So, hey, River Morris.
Look there, the man from down under.
That's right.
Hey, Coonbo, why do you think they hang around that area so much?
Right around here, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, this is a dadgum. We got, there's a lot of water around here, a lot of fish and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of reports of people seeing them in the river and in creeks and stuff, and you know that feed into the river around here. And there's just a fantastic amount of food and stuff around here this time of year. In fact, you know, we got them around here all year. You know, at least some of them. A buddy of mine that was out here coon hunting the other night, he came back and brought me some pictures. He said, "Look at these huge piles of corn cobs that I found right off the edge of your fields." And he said, "Coons don't pile up corn cobs like that." And he said, "There was a log right there." And in fact, he showed me the picture. And he said, "There's a log right there. Looked like somebody been sitting on it." And and I said, "You know what that is?" And he said, "Well," he said, "I'm glad it wasn't there when I came walking up." He, you know what was funny? He asked me, he was telling me about this one particular area where his dog had treed and he went cutting through the woods. And he said, "Man," he said, "my skin got to crawling and he said, I got the creeps." He said, "My hair got to standing up." And he said that place, he said, there was something in there. And I said, "Well, yeah, you were going right through one of their main areas." I said, "That's where their nursery is." And that's what I call the sanctum sanctorum, you know, or the inner sanctorum area there, Greg. That's where I was hollering at when that one answered us back the other night. Yeah. And that's where, you know, when we back years ago, we'd be coon hunting, and if you got too close to that one area there, they'd run you off. They'd come out screaming at you. But I said he must know you, otherwise he'd have hollered at you or something. And he's been coon hunting out here for a while. And he said, "Yeah," he said, "that's the first real creepy place that I've gotten into out back here." And he said, "I don't want to see one." He said, "I know I don't want to see one." And I said, "Well," I said, "you know, don't." I said, "As long as they know what you do and they know what your dog's doing back here." And I said, "Just talk to them. If you feel like they're watching, just talk to them." And but anyway, it's not keeping him from coming back here. But what's funny is his dog's been out here a bunch of times, and his dog's just now getting where she'll go back in the woods. Up until now, she only hunted the hedgerows and stuff out around in between the fields and stuff. But she's just now starting to venture back into the woods a little bit. Yeah.
We'd talked about it a little bit before we came on the air. We was talking about anybody that's not familiar with Mark Green's his podcast. Y'all go on his Facebook or on look at some of his podcast on stuff. Mark's had some really, really awesome stuff, guys. Y'all need to go on there and look, see what he's had going on, because he done a video a week or so back, 10 days maybe. He was doing his homesteading or farmsteading, and y'all just doing a video, him walking around his cornfield and his watermelons. Y'all need to go in there and look at that, because one of the people that watches his videos happened to notice some stuff that he didn't have a clue was there, and brought his attention to it and took some still photos out of the video. And apparently Mark had like 5 companions in the cornfield that he didn't know was there, and he was only just 30, 40 feet or less from these things. And about what they've nailed down so far, there's probably about 5 of them. He got some pretty spooky pictures, guys. I mean,
one of them is a big alpha, big boy. I mean, he's big. You could tell.
And I always get it. I can't never. And I'm horrible, y'all, with remembering crap, because what is it? Cedar Creek Bottoms Homestead. What is it? I always forget. I see it every day, multiple times, and I can't keep it in my head.
Spencer,
there we go. Thank you, Spencer. There we go. Look at her. Yeah. Spencer's paying attention. But guys, I mean, I talked to Mark last night about probably 2 hours, and we and him talking about it. I just told him, brother, be careful, and I worry about him these things being right up on top of him, but I worry about Miss Rebecca. Hey,
yeah,
got to be careful around these things.
I think Mark's too nice for him to do anything to him. That's a good fella.
Y'all see Misty's comment. They just afraid that Spencer may have some type of, infection or something. They don't catch it. I don't know. He shut away from him a little bit. If he'd have listened to me while he was here, and if he packed his underwear with peanut butter and just stayed on the porch, he'd had an encounter. So I don't know. But, Misty has dogs.
Sounds like something Larry'd do.
Yeah, Spencer.
You should have seen me yesterday. It wasn't peanut butter.
No. Hey, if he'd have done that,
TMI.
If he'd come up here on this porch and one of them boats came up here and rubbed on him, he'd had more than peanut butter in his underwear. I promise you. It may have been the same consistency in the color, but it would have been peanut butter. Y'all, I was so proud that like Noble and Misty and Spencer got to come hang out with me, and they got to see. I got to carry them around to some of the places where I've had all my encounters. And guys, I didn't realize, that's what I told Noble earlier. I didn't realize that a lot of these people that came on here and started following, these guys, and got to following, Misty and Spencer and stuff. And they see me on a lot of these podcasts. And, I'm just an old redneck hillbilly that fixes air conditioners. And most of the people don't realize how many encounters that I've had. And, they go back, guys, if y'all got questions, don't know nothing about me. I did a bunch of podcasts with Mark and Larry, done one with Bama. Guys, y'all go back. We'll try to post it. Maybe I can get these guys to post it in the comments on some of the shows where I first started doing them. And I've done a bunch there for several months with these guys and talked about all the stuff that I've been through. Y'all go back and look and watch some of those, and y'all see what I know about these things, which is very little. I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of encounters with these things. Like I said, I've been putting up with them for over 20 years. I've had one within 6 feet of me. He was in the bushes, and I walked right by him. And just as I stepped by him, he huffed, grunted, or growled, whatever you want to call it. I didn't know whether to crap myself or turn inside out. It like scared me to death. And he was right. I'm talking about I just walked right past him. And I've had them chase me. I've had them follow me out, knock trees, grumble, growl, scream, roar, howl. Horrible, horrible. Been bluff charged. They come running at me, sound like a car wrecking through the thicket, run right up. And they'd stop. I mean, just throw a temper tantrum, sound like a deranged 2-year-old that weighed 1,000 pounds, just destroying the woods. I've had them, I've seen, laid eyes on 3, and I'm not counting whatever we saw coming back from Coonbo's. I'm not counting that. I'm talking about 3 that I saw really well. Yeah, look at him. Wolverine's beard. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, brother. That goes back to me and Misty picking on Spencer. That's what we keep saying. You're not a close friend if you can't cut somebody to the bone and chuckle about it. I mean, you got to toughen your friends up to face the real world. They want the tolerances. It's all about tolerances. But guys, it's crazy. I mean it. But please, if y'all go back and listen to some of the podcasts that I've done, and I've got to be up in the 12, 14 or more that I've done, and listen to my encounters, and y'all hear some of my scariest stuff that, guys, I didn't think I was coming out of these woods. I thought I'm not going to make it out, and I was armed every time with a 30-06 semi-automatic Browning rifle and a 357 combat revolver. And I, honest to God, didn't think I was going to make it. I mean, they would get between me and the truck, and they weren't happy. Chase you to the truck, try to ambush you. They'd make you think they'd walked off, and you'd think, okay, the coast is clear, I'm coming down. You come out of your tree stand, as soon as you hit the ground, they come after you. I mean, running, tearing the world apart. Chase you to the truck. I mean, it's been crazy. They'll steal my deer. I deer hunt a lot. I mean, that's my passion is hunting. We've had 6 deer stolen now in the last 11 years. And I'm not talking about deer that we shot and we had a blood trail and we just couldn't find them. I'm not talking about those. We've had several of those. I'm talking about deer that we shot. We'd walk to, get to the deer, lay hands on it, pull its head off the ground by the horns, look at it, its tongue hanging out. It's DEAD, dead, capital letters, dead, right there, not breathing, hole blowed through it, puddle of blood big as a dishpan. Leave that deer, walk out, go to get a vehicle or ATV, be gone 10, 15 minutes, come back. The only way in and out of that property was the road that I was on, going out to get a vehicle to come back. Other than you had to try to traipse through a 40-acre grown up cutover that it would take you an hour to go 25 yards, just briars and bushes and stuff. You come back and your deer's gone. I mean, here's still the blood spot where it was laying. The deer's it's like it floated away or soaked in the ground. It's gone. I didn't go looking for these things. These things found me. I was happy go lucky, just enjoying life and hunting and having a big whoopee time. And poof, they come out of nowhere. And first year we really didn't know what the heck was going on. We thought it was somebody harassing us, beating on trees and whooping. You'd hear whoops all the time. We'd be in the woods and it would be loud. I'm not about loud. I've had these things whoop, be within 20, 25 yards and be in the thicket. You couldn't see them. It WHOOP, strung out long. Whoop. It hurt your ears. It'd be so loud. And me going, who's over here? This moron's down here trying to burn our hunting. We couldn't figure out what was going on. And the first year it was benign encounters. We'd hear them whistle. You'd hear a whistle, monotone whistle. I've heard them come in from my right side, which the landline was over there probably 100 yards. They'd come in and circle the green field, and then they'd go out through that cutover and go diagonal across 40 acres. So we're talking about covering over a quarter of a mile. And on the other diagonal corner of this property was the other green field. My dad would be in the stand over there, and I'd be in the stand down here on this corner. The thing did sound like it'd go 30, 40 feet, and it'd whistle. Just a monotone, and it quit. You could hear it walking. It's breaking limbs and stomping, going up through that cutover. I'm talking about, I'd have a struggle on my bulldozer going through that cutover. That thing would walk through there like it wasn't no problem, just tromping, going through it, and it'd whistle. They don't tell how many times I heard it whistle, and it was going straight toward the green field Dad was in. Well, it got on closer to dark, and I came down and went out to the truck, and I asked Dad, I said, did you hear that thing whistling? He said, well, how could I not? It came right behind the stand. He said, it wasn't just a few yards back there. Said I couldn't see it, but it sounded like somebody walking. He said, he's breaking limbs, went on over into that government land, that big timber. I said, well, it come by me and went straight towards you. And I said, I knew it was coming by. He said, yeah, I don't know what that was. And y'all, that went on for a long time. We couldn't put it together. We thought, like I said, somebody was harassing us. And then after the first year, on out second, maybe third year, they got to where they'd be a little more. They started to where you'd come out of the stand trying to go to the truck. You'd have company. You'd hear walking. It never would be directly behind you. They would never get past like parallel sides to you, or not parallel, but I guess just off straight, like right and left. They would never get ahead of you. It'd always be behind you and angling either to your right or your left. And them things would be in the thicket. And when you'd walk, they'd walk. When you'd stop, they'd stop. And how in the hell they could see me, I don't know. I dang sure couldn't see them. I mean, it'd be like looking through this wall right here. I mean, that old cutover's growed up so thick you couldn't see nothing. And Spencer motorcycle story. I don't know if these boys want me to tell that one.
I'm good as long as you don't spell anything else and misspell nothing.
Well, look, that is Common Core spelling. Common Core. Look, you don't even have to get the right answer as long as you try. That's the way Common Core math works.
That's exactly right.
That's Common Core. Y'all just embrace the Common Core. That's look at there. Leanne binge watched me and Combo. Bless your heart, Leanne. I hope you didn't get your eyes ugly too bad. Good Lord. But guys, Spencer, I guess I could tell the motorcycle story. That's one of my favorite stories, and that's my worst afraid story. The most scared I've ever been in my entire life had to be the motorcycle story. And guys, I've been doing law enforcement 14 and a half years. I've been shot at numerous times. I've been on drug raids and felony warrants. I mean, we've had to do some sketchy stuff that was really, really, really bad, dangerous. I've never been as scared doing that stuff as I have right over here, a mile and a half from where I'm sitting over here in these big trees in this timber. We'd been dealing with these things for several years, and we'd done put it together what they were and knew what was going on best we could put together. Me and my buddy Al, and y'all notice he's been in the live chat now. I don't know if Al's still hanging in here with us. He may have went to sleep. He's about tuckered out tonight. He's like me, he works in the heat and about melted. But Al's been like my brother, y'all. I mean, basically adopted brother for way more than half of my life. I mean, since I was 14 years old, he's been like my brother, and I'm fixing to be 50. He's got his own bedroom at my house. He got his own room here at the man cave. I mean, he tried and true, Al. If I need a person in this world I can count on, it's him. But y'all, he hunted over here with me, dealing with these things. Me and him and my dad. Me and Al went over there hunting. He got in the upper Greenfield, and y'all will hear me talk about the upper and the lower Greenfield. But Al used to love to hunt the upper field. He was in it, and I decided instead of me going to the lower field, I was going to go out on some government land that joined this, a couple of 100 yards through this thicket from the field he's on to where I was going to be. And I decided that the deer, instead of coming through, the acorns were falling pretty good, and I had to go past this cutover up a Forest Service road. and it was a big old rock, BG fist in this road. And I could walk past the property that my cousin owned that I hunted that we were on. And I could turn to the right and go in through. It was giant hardwood timber, all U.S. Forest Service land. And I'm talking about trees. I mean, it'd be like 40, 50 feet to the first limb. These things are massive. It'd take 2 grown men to try to reach around one. But my cousin's land was all growed up, and it joined that. When I turned to the right and walked out on the border of this line, so on my right, it's all this growed up crap, and where kind of this old log road that went out through there, it was these big, giant pine trees, and it had a lot of underbrush, but the underbrush was a lot of honeysuckles and vines and like dogwood trees and just smaller stuff that came up under. These pines were so big that it was now letting the sun under it, so the underbrush was growed up in it. Well, once I walked 100 or so yards out through those big trees, there was a different type of trees. It was like the fauna changed. The big trees, the pines that I was in, turned into all hardwoods. Where they had logged this years ago, they had only logged so close to where it drops off to go to the river, down to the river, and it's a couple of hundred, maybe 300 yards to the river. But it's this big hollow that veers in, and it's going down this hill. Well, my plan was these deer are not coming to the green field. They're going around the thicket, and they're going in here picking up acorns and eating in these hardwoods. So I told Al, look, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to clear me out a spot. I'm going to sit on the side of this where it drops off in this big hollow. And I can see, like 100 and something yards down to the bottom, and it flattens just a little bit. And then it goes back up another big hill. And you see at least 200 yards through this big giant hardwood because it's pretty clean in there, like really clean, just leaves and big hardwood trees. Well, anyway, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to sit on the ground. I clear out a spot by this big old tree. And that was one like lone pine kind of out by itself in the hardwoods, but it was huge and it was right where I wanted, where I could see the best. And so going back out, I would have to walk from that tree back to the hardwood, through the hardwoods, which is like 30 yards. And then I go back in this old road where the growed up stuff's on the left and the big pines is on the right. And I'm going through the middle. Well, I'm sitting there and I've got this 30-06 Browning rifle laying on my lap, and I'd cleaned out a big spot, plumb down into just dirt. I'd raked it with my foot, and that gives you a lot of cover scent because you got that fresh dirt smell around you. So I'm sitting on this dirt, and it's pretty cold. Now, it's probably 30-something degrees, and I'm sitting there and hadn't saw a thing, hadn't heard a thing, nothing that evening. I mean, didn't hear anything. Well, Al, from where I'm sitting, Al's like to my, say, 2 o'clock, about 200 yards through this thicket. And I'm really close to the edge of the thicket where I'm at, even though I'm in the hardwoods. Well, over my left shoulder, back up toward the main highway, which is about a mile. This was later in the evening, after 4 o'clock. I hear a motorcycle. And this thing sounds like, it's not like one of the crotch rocket motorcycles. This is more like a cruiser. And it wasn't a Harley. I'm saying like a Yamaha or something like that, like a cruiser bike. And it sounded like the guy had pulled off the side of the road and he was having trouble with it. Like he was trying to rev it up, just like twist the throttle and rev it up and clean it out and let off and do it again, like it was loading up carburetor or something. So as he's doing this, and this thing undoubtedly didn't have any exhaust on it. I mean, it was loud and it's just echoing down these big hollows where I'm at. This motorcycle revs up about 3 times. It's going 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile. And about the time, that 3rd time when it echoed, the whole damn world exploded right over my shoulder toward where this motorcycle is. But mind you, that's where the big pines are in the road going out. I didn't know what to do except panic, but I knew I had to keep my wits about me, and I couldn't panic. I couldn't afford to just break down. I wanted to break down squall. I mean, it's like I couldn't breathe. Y'all, that noise, the scream that it let out, it wasn't just a scream. And I've never heard I've listened to anything that I can possibly find on the internet that people says, oh, this is a Bigfoot, this is that, whatever. Even what everybody says is like the mecca of horrible screams, the Alabama T-Rex. No, that sounds like a mouse peeing on a bale of cotton compared to what I heard. Y'all, that thing, the duration is unfathomable how long it took for it to quit screaming. But it started out like a really low, like a bull bellowing. And it ramped up into like a lion roaring. And then that transitioned into like a man screaming, then a woman screaming, and then like a wolf howl. And it snapped on the end like a whip cracking. And it just kept going and going. And it was going, whoa. And it just quit at the end, just snapped. Y'all, it makes my arms chill bump up right now talking about it. I've never heard anything sound that violent. Nothing on this planet is supposed to sound like that did. And it just kept going and going and going and going before it would stop. And it was like you were standing in front of a stereo speaker 6 foot tall right against it. It was like the sound slapped me and like it went completely through and out my back. It was like my clothes was fluttering. I thought, I've never wanted to be somewhere else besides where I was at as bad in my entire life. It was horrible. I mean, horrible. That thing, it screamed, and y'all, it was like that quick. I was like, it was behind the tree, and the tree I was on was huge. And I thought, okay, it's behind this tree. Maybe it can't see me. And y'all, I stood up as quick as I could, being as quiet as I could. And I would wear an orange toboggan over my hat, because if I put a toboggan on, it makes my head all itchy. But y'all, I pulled that off my orange. I pull my orange and I pull my bibs. I wear a bib and a coat and insulated. And I shoved that thing down inside where it couldn't be seen, that orange. I didn't want nothing to make me stand out. Nothing. Because I was full camo other than my face and that orange. Y'all, stood up and I was absolutely hiding behind that tree. And I've done got my rifle pulled up the stock to my shoulder, and I'm looking over the scope, and I'm peeping, like just peeping around the tree. And this thing's stomping around right there in the thicket, the underbrush on where the big trees was, the honeysuckles and the little saplings and stuff. This thing could not have been over 20 feet from the clear, open hardwoods. It's about 20 or so feet just in that thicket. Y'all, just a couple minutes pass, and the motorcycle again revs up 3 times. Third time that thing, when it got let off the throttle and the echo quit, 3, 2, 1, that thing set off the same bellow, roar, scream, howl. Done it again, just like you'd hit replay. Y'all, I'm just shaking head to toe. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And this thing is tearing the woods apart. I watch a dogwood tree. I can see the upper 15 or so feet of this dogwood. So, I mean, it's a big dogwood. I'm talking about the trunks like this big as a coffee can or bigger. Y'all, I watched the top of that dogwood tree whip back and forth and to and fro, and it would whirl round and round, and it's snapping and cracking. And that thing's just going crazy. It looked like a grown man, 6'1", 200 pounds, if I grabbed a little sapling about that big and was just jerking it, whooping it, that's what this dogwood tree looked like. And y'all, that thing would stop and it would stomp the ground and it would grumble, and it was just breaking just anything. It was like it was just rage. I'm talking about just rage. I'm going to annihilate. Don't dare, taunt me. I'll show you I'm the baddest thing here. That's what it made me feel. Y'all, my phone's in my pocket, and my phone buzzed. Like scared me to death. And I'm still like trying to pull back, hide behind the tree and peek. And I've still got my rifle. I pinch it with my arm, and I pull my phone out, and I look at it, and I'm holding my gun, flip it open, and it says, had it topped out. U, capital U, okay. Take my hand, I type, hell no, send. And y'all, this is exactly what I type. HELL space NO, all capital letters. Hell no, I'm not okay. That's what I'm thinking. Just a second, my phone. Zzz, zzz, zzz. I look at it again. It said ON space WAY on way. I was, oh wow, he's over there listening to all this. Y'all, he's hearing this god awful terribleness, and he knows where I'm at, and that's exactly where this screaming's coming from. But it's going to take a while, a minute to get to me, because he's got to get out of a stand, and he's going to have to go from the stand out 250, 300 yards, I guess, to the truck. Then he's got to go. The only way to get to me, there's no way he can go to me this straight line. Ain't happening. No, it took him 3 weeks to went through that thicket. The only way to get to me, he's got to go back out to the truck, go up the road, and come in the way I went in. And I'm like, this ain't good. He's going to have to take his time because he don't know what he's getting into. I'm over here by my dang self. He's way off over here. And I know, but I look here, I know Brother Allen, he's coming. He's fixing to wade through hell and back to get to me because he's scared I'm about to get tore apart. Y'all, I can't express just a sheer fear, panic that I had. Y'all, that thing got quiet. And I thought, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Hey, what am I going to do? And in my head, look, we've been dealing with these things for years at this point in time. And over 90% of the time that we dealt with these things, had encounters with them when they would leave. If they left and just didn't really mess with us, or sometimes if they did, they would, when they'd leave, the main thing they'd do is they'd go toward the river. When they would leave, when you heard them walk off, they'd go toward the water, toward the river. The thing in my head, what had me so panicked, was I was between this thing and the river. And the only way in hell I could get out of there was I was going to have to go toward this thing. And where I'm watching this dogwood whoop back and forth, it wasn't 30 yards from the road I had to go out. My only way out of there. I had to go down that old log road to get out. That put me, instead of being 100, 110 feet from it, I was going to be 30 feet from it. I was going to have to go toward it to try to get the hell out of there. You're talking about a lonely, slow sinking feeling. I was going down like the Titanic. I didn't know what to do. Y'all, a few minutes passed, and I mean a few minutes. I'm not talking about no long time. And I've talked about this over and over, and all this stuff runs together. And I think a lot of it's panic, just the pure adrenaline of it. I can tell you best I can what happened, but it stuff I remember, and then things that we'll talk about. And he said, remember doing this? So, yeah, man, golly, because y'all, I was in self-preservation mode. And I've had people say, well, why didn't you try to record it? Why didn't you try to do this? Look, I wasn't trying to do shit except keep breathing. That's all I was concerned with. Am I going to get out of here and my head going to get jerked off of me, or my arm's going to be torn? Am I going to be torn limb from limb? I don't know what's going to happen. But I know this thing is in a fit of rage that I can't even describe. And it is absolutely annihilating everything around it in an area. Sound like about a 25-foot circle. It's like it's absolutely destroying everything it can lay its hands on. It sounds like there's tree limbs that big around just exploding. Sounds like rifle shots going off. But the dang thing gets quiet. There's not a sound, nothing. There's not a sound anywhere. There's not a sound where that dogwood tree is. I can't hear nothing. Y'all, a very few minutes pass. Motorcycle revs up again. Does the same three rev ups. And when that booger answered that thing that time, that thing had to be 400 yards at least away from me toward the motorcycle through all these growed up woods. And Spencer and Misty and Mark saw how growed up this stuff is. That thing had traveled 400 yards. Y'all, an Olympic runner couldn't have went 400 yards on a track as fast as that thing covered that and was screaming at the motorcycle again. And y'all, I thought, well, I may make it. Look here, it's gone. It's mad at the motorcycle. And I done put that together. That's what I put together really quick, was it was mad at the motorcycle. And I honest to God believe that thing thought that the motorcycle was something screaming and challenging it. I think that's what it was, is it took it as like something roaring at it, like a challenge call. And oh my God, y'all, I just like a weight lifted off me. And I tell people, and this is what it just in my mind, some of us older guys or girls that grew up watching Fred Flintstone, when Fred would tippy toe, he'd jump up on his toes and out there. That's the way I felt going out of them woods. Now, look, I grew up with a daddy taught me how to walk in the woods, how to walk like a Native American, how to place your feet, not make no noise. And if you learn that, you can go through the woods really, really quiet. And y'all, I went out there as quiet and as quickly as I could. And when I got out back to that gravel road, y'all, when I got there, I still had my rifle pulled up under my arm, and I'm looking over the scope. I'm thinking I'm fixing to have to blast something in a second. And the first thing I saw was a owl. Owl was coming up that road, coming to me. And as soon as I saw him, y'all, it was just like, it's just like my whole body just sunk. And his first words was, "Are you all right?" I said, "Hell, I ain't sure. I don't know. I may be." I said, "Let's go to the truck." I walked right there where he was, and me and him walked side by side down that road back to my truck, which was 100, maybe 100 yards, a little over 100 yards. We got to my truck. He said, "Are you all right?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "Man, I feel sick." I opened the door on my truck, stuck my rifle barrel into the floorboard, and laid the stock up on the seat under the steering wheel. And y'all, I grabbed the steering wheel with my right hand, and I grabbed the door. The door was open. I grabbed the top of where the window, the bottom of the window part of the door. I held on to it right there. And y'all, lightheaded, dizzy. And all of a sudden it hit me, and I bowed up and puked. I mean, just flat out puked right there. Got my breath, wiped my mouth. About that time, I puked again. He said, "Are you all right?" I said, I'll be all right. I'll get all right. I said, "Dude, I reckon my adrenaline dumped." Y'all, it made me sick as a dog after just a few minutes. But honest to God, I thought I'm fixing to have to shoot my way out of here. I thought, I don't really know if anybody else has ever killed one of these dang things, but I know I'm about fixing to have to try. And that's the last thing I want to do is have to shoot one. I've had times, y'all, a bunch of times in the last 20-something years. There's no doubt in my mind I could put rounds on target. I've had them things wouldn't be 3 foot behind the leaves. They wouldn't step out where I could see them. And them things throwing a fit. The one that me and Al's buddy followed Al out that night. You had me and Al. I had a 30-06 semi-automatic, and that 357. Al had a 45 ACP pistol on his hip, and he was toting a Browning A-bolt 7 mag. And that thing was 40 feet from us, belligerent, growling, huffing. It wasn't happy. There's no doubt in my mind. I could have put rounds on it, but that's the last dang thing I want to do, because I think that's when your problems come. Your problems are going to start. You shoot one, them things ain't by themselves, y'all. You may see one, but I'll promise you there's another one close. I've done had too many dealings with these things. You're not going to find one very far unless he's sure enough just been run off from the troop. They're not going to be far. What are you going to do if you wound one and that thing goes to screaming bloody murder? The rest of them ain't going to be so happy. And trust me, when you got one that's irate, belligerent, that ain't the place to be, guys. I'm telling you, I've been there. I've lived it. It ain't fun. It ain't fun at all.
Let's see. We got to add Coombo back in
There
here.
he is. Look at
My camera
Oh.
locked up for me. But I heard every word of Greg's story. And
Every time Greg tells that to me, as Coombo would say, I get chili bumps because
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it would be like to have that kind of distance in between me and my truck, and you've got to go towards it to get out of there.
yeah,
Good thing you've slept through all of them. While I'm sitting there going, what in the crap is going on there?
you know what? The thing that puts the fear in me now, or has the last few years, because like I said, you know, I kind of half-assed accidentally made peace with these things, and that was by sheer dumb luck and accident and the grace of the good Lord. They don't treat me all belligerent anymore and try to harm me or act stupid. The thing that gets me now is like when we go out and you're blessed to have good friends that you look at like a brother like Coonbo, and when you're out with him and Al and Jimmy Osmer in the middle of damn nowhere, and Coonbo decides to chauffeur the hell out of them, and they start storming in on you. And you're thinking, well, okay, you know, hey, we'll be all right. And then you look over and Coonbo goes, hey, we need to go. And I'm like, uh-oh. Now, you know.
Hey, let me ask y'all this real quick. Have y'all ever seen Jimmy pull that pistol? How'd he get it out? Because it's up here.
Jimmy's not. Hey, Jimmy,
the pistol's longer than he is
I
tall.
know.
Jimmy don't classify as a man with a gun. He defines himself as a gun with a man.
Yeah. There's a gun there, and he's crawled up on the gun, going to try to operate it.
Guys, we have got to get. I may have to. Me and Coombo just gonna have to go to Jimmy's house and hijack him. He's got to come on here with us.
Yeah.
Well, we got time for one last story. And I'd like for Coombo to leave us with one last encounter story.
All right, I'll tell one that's similar to Greg's, because he said some things, just brought some memories back to me. The first time I had a real close run in with him like that was belligerent. And right here on this farm, back in the late 70s, this would have been about October of I think this was October of 79. We had, and it was about the half moon. The moon it was a clear night. The moon was about a quarter, you know, like what it is tonight, and last night, you know, about a quarter moon or half of the moon was showing. Clear night, and we'd been having some trouble with some calves disappearing off the back of the farm, out of one of our fields back in the extreme northwest corner of the farm. And there was an old road bed that came off of the property adjacent to us. In fact, we had the 85 acres leased just to the north, off our northwest corner. But there was an old road bed that came up onto that property, and we had tried blocking that thing off several times, and people would get in there and they'd drag the logs out of the way or cut them with a chainsaw and then cut down our fence. We thought that some rustlers were getting our cattle. And so I had been going back there in the evenings. I'd go back there about, right after dark. I'd walk back there by myself, just me and my old Doberman Pinscher, Lavelle. And I think that's my wife is pulling up out here with some apple pie. But anyway, we were back there one night, and it was a Thursday night, I remember. and and I had an old Lee Enfield Army rifle that my grandfather had sporterized, and I killed my first 7 deer with that thing. And I was carrying that dude. It had a 10-round magazine, plus you could have one in the chamber, and 303 British. And well, we thought that somebody was coming in on us and stealing our cattle, rustling our calves. So I'd walk back over there right after dark, and I'd sit back over there, me and the dog, till about 1:30 a.m. And I figured I had to work the next day. So I was walking back to the house. And from over yonder back to the house is a little over 3/4 of a mile. And so I'm walking along, and Greg's been up there. Had to walk through a part of the farm. We call it the Bee Ridge. And we used to have a bunch of beehives back there. And I'm walking along, and old Lavelle, my Doberman Pinscher, and this is a badass Doberman Pinscher now. And I mean, he'd give his life to protect me. And but he's trotting along beside me, and I started getting the creeps. And I noticed, I looked over there, I heard him whine. And I heard him whine, and he had his head down and his little old tail tucked down tight against his rear end, like he's afraid, like somebody kicked him, or he's afraid he's going to get kicked. And oh boy. And
I cut it in half.
Okay.
You, Kayla, me. It's not that good though.
Oh really?
I didn't think it was.
I got some apple pie.
She's figured you out.
Randy, did you bring enough for all of us?
So anyway, so I noticed him, and he kept glancing back over his left shoulder, and man, my skin was crawling, and I had chili bumps all over me, and I just I'll holler at you in a bit, and
Hey, Sandy.
She's already out on the porch with the dogs. Anyway, man, I just felt like that, that I was in mortal danger, and it just kept getting worse. And old Lavelle was just right up next to me, and he was all hunkered up, his head down, and his little tail tucked down, his rear end sort of tucked up, and he kept looking back to the left and whining. And I just felt like something was fixing to grab us any second. And all I did was I flipped the safety off on that rifle. And anybody that's ever shot an old Lee Enfield knows the safety's pretty dadgum quiet. I just ease that safety off, but it makes a very slight little noise. As soon as I clicked that safety off, this thing from about 30 yards back in the woods behind me, over my left shoulder, this thing screamed like you can't believe it. It's like what Greg said. It sounded like the world was coming apart. And it was just, Greg described it perfectly. It felt like the sound hit me and just torn through my body, and my clothes and everything literally vibrated. I mean, it shook my whole body to the core. And unbelievably, it's so loud it hurt my ears. And I had never heard, I'd heard booger calls almost my whole life, but I had never heard one scream like this. Better get your nose away from my pipe, dog. And anyway, I couldn't help it. It was a gut reaction, and I didn't want to do it because I knew better than to run from a predator, but I couldn't help it. I busted to the right, and I took off running out towards the middle of this field. And I'll tell you how fast I was running. I'd gone about 100 yards or so, and suddenly I realized, oh my God, I'm running from this thing. Is it behind me? and I slammed on the brakes and swung around with my rifle up, like what Greg said. I was plumb to a plumb stop, and my dog goes past me. He never broke stride. He ran all the way to the house. It's the house at that point was about 600 and something yards away. And there I am standing in that field, but the moon, that quarter moon was up, and it was a bright night. And I looked over, and just like Greg said, I could see. Actually, I wasn't 100 yards. I was probably more like 50 yards out in that field, 50, 60, maybe 75 yards out in that field. And I could see that thing was screaming, and I could see the tops of these trees just whooping back and forth and jerking like what he said. Then they'd stop for a second. I could hear him back there stomping through the woods. And then he'd scream again, and all these trees would just be shaking. And it was just tearing through my body, like what Greg says. I mean, the sound was like hit you in front of, almost like it's going to tear the back out of my shirt or something. And I started, and I would get glimpse, because the moon was like slightly over my left shoulder at this point, and I was getting little flashes of eye shine. I didn't even have a flashlight with me because it was such a bright night. And but I was getting little glimpses of eye shine over in the woods on occasion, and I just started backing across the field with the rifle up, and I'd back away, and then I'd stop for a second, look, because there was a few washed places on the terraces when I started backing down the terraces, make sure I wasn't going to step off in a hole and break a leg or something, and I'd look around real quick, and then I'd back away some more, and finally, once I got over the lip of the hill off that ridge and got down on a little old bottom, there was a nice lane that went up through the woods right there, but I could not make myself go in those woods. Went and up through the woods and came out right up beside the tractor shed, and we had a yard light up there, and a booger light we called them. Anyway, I couldn't make myself go into those woods, so I ran out across where the hog pen used to be, and the ground's all nasty and muddy and everything, and but I ran through that mess, and and I'd run about 50 yards, and then I'd whirl around, looking all around, make sure that thing wasn't chasing me. Then I'd run another 50 yards, and I'd whirl around looking. And I got up to the house, and poor old Lavelle was up there at the back door, bouncing at the back door, wanting in the house. And I grabbed my key out of my pocket, and I was like this, and I literally had to hold my key with both hands. Took me both hands holding the key to get it in the lock and get the door unlocked and get in the house. And Lord, I didn't know what to do. I was scared to get in the bed, and I had a big old sofa sleeper in the living room that was not against, was not right there by a window, because my bed was right by a big window, and I laid down on that sofa sleeper, and that's where I slept that night. Now, the next night, Friday night, I had a date, and went out with this girl and got back in about 1 a.m. and was came in there, and I went to the bathroom, got undressed, went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth, getting cleaned up, everything. And I came out, and old Lavelle was standing there in my bedroom at the foot of the bed, and he was looking at the windows there on the south side of my bedroom, which is the front of the house. And he was looking at that thing, and all of his hackles were standing straight up, and he had his legs out stiff in front of him, and had his head down, and he was growling. I had never seen him do this before, and he was growling a low, menacing growl that it was dead serious. He wasn't playing. And about that time, and like I said, the moon was up. It was another clear night. I saw this big shadow go across my front windows from left to right, and that put it around the corner of the house. And the dog was turning the whole time, following it. And then I had a window there on the west side of the house, and the moon was far enough over that it was by this time of the night that it was shining on those windows on the west side of the house, and he and I saw this big shadow go across that window. The thing about it is that window's really high off the ground, and it's a tall window, and it covered the thing's head was above the part of its head was above the top of the window. And I went out there and measured the next day, and which had been Saturday, and I figured whatever it was somewhere around 9.5, 10.5 feet tall. And it walked past that window, and I was standing there right outside the bathroom, and I could see into the back bedroom, and it went across, the shadow went across the west windows of the back bedroom, and then it went out across the backyard, and there was a big old window that I could have eased up the blinds and looked out, but I was scared to look. I was terrified that I would look through that blind and that dude would be sitting there on the other side looking back at me, because just a year before that, I had taken my very first Bigfoot report from some folks, and one lady went to look out the window, and this thing leaned in and was right on the other side of the window looking in at her, and that's still one of the scariest reports I've ever taken. But that was the very first one I ever took, actually interviewing somebody, and where I'd heard a Bigfoot sighting, and anyway, but that dude, that yard had a 3-foot hog wire fence around the whole yard, and then had 3 strands of barbed wire on top of that. So that fence was a good, close to 4.5, 5 foot tall. I'd say probably closer to 5 foot tall, about like this on me. And whatever it was stepped right over that fence, didn't climb it or anything, because that old house has no insulation in it whatsoever, and you can hear everything that goes on outside in there. And there was not a single sound. And but we had a fence all the way around it, and she came up here and put one of her toys in my lap. But anyway, we had a couple of gates, had a walk-through gate and then two other drive-through gates going into that yard. And those old things made a bunch of racket. But we had cattle could run all around that part of the house, that part of the farm, and go all around the house. But that was a scary night right there. And that was the first time I was ever screamed at like that, like what happened to him, close range. And I can tell you, it actually, I'm amazed that I didn't pee myself or mess myself, because it scared me so bad. And I mean, I can't imagine being trapped like Greg was. He, at least I could get away from it, but to be trapped down an area like that when you know that you're not near any kind of a rescue, that's something else. I know I had one walk up on me one time when I was muzzleloader hunting, and I thought it was another hunter walking in on me, and about 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was sitting on the ground leaned up against a stump, and I was sitting here watching. I could hear coming from over my right shoulder. And I was on the side of a knoll, and I hear the big old heavy footsteps coming down through there. It wasn't a hunter, it was a dadgum booger. And he walked past me probably, I don't know, less than 40 yards from me. And this was semi-open hardwoods, and I was looking down towards a creek, and there was that down there was a good deer crossing where the deer would cross the creek down there, and I had a real good field of view. And that dude was just right over the crest of the knoll from me, and I could see it from just above about its waist on up. And of course, that scared the bejeebers out of him. You seeing it like that in the broad daylight, and all I had was a muzzleloader with one shot in it. It was a 54 caliber, and I could have killed it with that, but not before it shredded, tore me to shreds. So I just sat real still and quiet, and hoping it'd go on. It got about 40 yards past me, and it was at about a 45-degree angle from me. And it passed, I guess, is its closest point. It was maybe somewhere between 75 and 90 feet from me. And and all of a sudden it got out there about 40 yards, about 120 feet, and it just stopped instantly. And it stood still for just a second, and it goes like that, and just turned around and instantly locked eyes with me. It knew exactly where to look. And I like to died. And I didn't know whether to scratch my watch or wind my butt. And it stood there and stared at me for a minute. And I was looking right at it, and suddenly I remembered, don't make eye contact with it. Don't look it in the eye. And I looked down like this, and it stood there for another few seconds, and then it turned and just went walking off down the hill, and it disappeared over the knoll. And I quit hearing the walking before it got far enough away that I couldn't hear it. And have experienced many times where the things will walk off till you can't see it anymore, and then they'll stop. And I felt like it was still there. And 7 o'clock in the morning, I couldn't deal with that. So I got up and I walked my butt. I was half a mile from the truck. I walked my butt back to the truck and left. And went to another place and killed a fine 8-point buck at another place. So that booger actually did me some good that morning. Yeah. I think they have anti-venom. I think they definitely have fantastic sense of smell. Yeah. I think they definitely use their nose like a dog. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had them circle around me, and as soon as they'd get downwind of me, they'd know I was there. I mean, without a doubt.
Yeah. I've heard them sniffing before. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have.
Yeah, I've heard them sniffing, and absolutely, and yeah, I've had them circle around by downwind of me, and that's really good when you're up in a tree stand, up in a like a ladder stand or something where you're out there in the wind, and they stay just out of sight. You get just a little glimpse of them every once in a while, and you can hear them down there, and it's almost like they exaggerate the sniffings where they want you to hear them. They real loud, real long, deep breath inhaling, and I've heard them they get downwind of you, and they'll sniff real big, and then they'll grumble or growl or something like that.
What always creeped me out, Tim, was when they'd be up close and you could just hear them breathing. I mean, God, it sounded like a racehorse sucking air. I mean,
yeah. I've had them do that, and you not be able to see them.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you smell their dadgum breath, but you can't see them. That's happened to me several times.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm convinced they can cloak themselves somehow.
I don't know what they do. The only time I've ever seen them when I really that I couldn't explain. I mean, because most time with me, they was in that growed up thicket that I hunted. But I had that one day that one was coming around the field, and there was a gap. It was just a little old trail that I could see out in that thicket past. I could see out in the thicket past where that thing was going to cross that opening, because it was a lot closer to the field than where I could see out in the field. I could see a lot further down that path than where this thing was circling around. And I kept waiting. I thought, yep, I'm fixing to see it. It's fixed. If it comes up to that, and if it crosses that, I'm not blinking. I'm not moving. I'm watching that, and I'm focused on that little gap. All I can tell you, I heard it walking. It'd come up, it'd stop, and it'd come up, it'd stop. And it's breaking limbs. It's walking. And that thing got up there, and it stopped. And I thought, just step across. Just step across. Come on. Well, I heard something. And then next thing I know, the thing's on the other side of that gap, and it's coming on around. And how it went across that gap, I didn't see it. I can't explain. I have no clue. I never saw nothing. Never saw any movement. Never saw nothing. But that thing damn sure crossed that gap, and me staring right at that gap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've experienced that a time or two myself, and it just, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not a woo person at all. I firmly believe that they're flesh and blood. I mean, there's too many reports of them being hit by trains, people shooting them, being hit by vehicles. They're flesh and blood. You can kill them, but they have abilities that we don't. And I'm not saying it's supernatural or anything like that. I'm just saying that they got some way, somehow, that they can seal themselves that we cannot pick up on. And, Jimmy Osborne and I, we got into one up there over off the Elk River back last year, where the thing, we could see it clearly in a thermal imager. And I'm telling you, it was close as here to the end of this room right here. And, but you put a flashlight on it, and you couldn't see nothing, but we could see it through our thermals. But you couldn't see it with your eyes.
Yeah, Jimmy Osmer, he called me, and Jimmy was excited. And he's like, I don't know what happened. He said that craziest thing I ever seen. He said, and that's what he told me, just what Kumbo just told y'all, is that thing that they could see it clearly through the thermal. But he said they lit it up with a spotlight, and it was nothing there.
Yeah, two different thermals, greatly different from each other. Two different brands of thermals, greatly different capabilities, but we could clearly see it in both of them, and could not see it with the naked eye, shining several different spotlights and stuff out there, flashlights looking for it. And I'm, like I said, this thing was less than 40 feet away from us. I mean, it was close. I could have hit it with a rock. Easy. And,
wow.
Yeah. And if I could have seen it, I could have hit it with a rock. But, we sat there and watched it. We watched it come through the woods on our thermals coming towards us. And it came right up to the edge of the woods and stood there for a few minutes. And then it walked right. We were standing there, leaned up against a gate that was crossing a road going on to this piece of private property. And it walked right out in the middle of that road, right in front of us, about 40 feet from us. And Jimmy says, and we're sitting there looking at him with our thermals. We're whispering, what is this thing doing? Jimmy said, light his ass up. And I had a pretty potent spotlight with me, and I clicked that thing on. There was nothing there. I said, turn your light on, Jimmy. And we're looking around, and I'm holding the light. I look up with my thermal, and it's still there, and I'm pointing my light, and could not see the thing. And there was another one over to our side, and we looked over there with the thermal, and it was still there, laying on the ground between a 55-gallon drum and a tree. And I clicked my light on, shining towards it, and we could see its outline and its eye shine real good. And there was another one out in the field on about 250 yards away. And I went through my thermal, and it's still out there, and I shined towards it, and we could see its eye shine, and faintly see its outline at that distance. And but that one in front of us, could not see it with the naked eye at all, but clearly see it on the thermal, and heard it walking up there through the woods, coming towards us. So that's one I still cannot explain. And Bill White and I talked about stuff like that. Bill and I used to talk on the phone a fair amount, and I went down one time when he was getting in bad health, and I asked him if he would mind if I came down there to where he lived near Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and spent a few days down there and us visit and talk. He said, "Come on." So I went down there. I spent 3 days down there with him, and we talked about a lot of stuff that we had never talked to other folks about. And I was astounded that he had had a lot of the same experiences that I had with these things that just totally unexplained. No way to explain it. And it just, these things, the more I learn about them, the more I want to learn about them, the more questions I have. It's a never-ending quest. And, people, why do you do that? Why do you want to go bother these things? Well, I'm not bothering them. I want to, they come to us. Greg will tell you, they're as curious about us as we are. They come to us. I don't ask them things to come up here and throw rocks out in my yard while I'm out there mowing or sitting on the porch. I don't ask them to get after my dog and scare old Joe half to death. And I don't ask them to, when we drive out there on the point, to show up within 10 minutes or so and, let us know that they're there and throw rocks there or whistle or holler or whatever. And they just do it. They always have. And I tell people, if they were all mean and they wanted to catch us out and kill us, I'd have been gone decades ago.
Yeah, they could have done got me 150 times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They couldn't have got me.
I was back there squirrel hunting on the back of the farm, and it was a beautiful, beautiful morning. And it's about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'd killed I'd killed a few squirrels, and I decided it's time for a nap. I'd been out pretty late the night before, and there was we had a fire out here on the farm back in the 60s, and this is in the 70s, and it had burned up a bunch of the mountain laurel back there on the bluffs and along the waterfront, and they were growing back, but they weren't anything like they are now, but they were only about 5-6 feet tall at the time, and when they burned all that stuff away for years out there before they grew all up and shaded out again, there was this green carpet moss that grew back there on top of the bluff, right before you drop off, off into the water, and boy, it was nice and soft. It was a perfect place to stretch out and take a nap. And I laid down out back there, and I laid my rifle down beside me, my old 22, and the bluff's like right here. But about at that point right there was about 45 feet to the water. And I'm stretched out there and taking me a good nap. And something woke me up. And somehow I knew not to just, pop my eyes open and go looking around. But I felt a presence. And I very slowly cracked open an eye and got to looking around. And about 6 feet away, there was one standing there looking at me. And my first reaction, I wanted to just throw myself off that bluff. And I'm not scared of those heights. We used to jump off bluffs a lot taller than that when I was a kid, and swim and stuff. And I thought, well, first of all, I don't want to get my rifle all wet. Second of all, if I jump into the water right there, I'm gonna have to swim. I'm gonna have to swim about 500 yards before there's a place I can get up out of the water. And I'm in my hunting clothes, and I'd have to shuck my boots probably, and I don't want to lose these expensive Browning hunting boots. So I thought, well, I'm not going to throw myself off this bluff if this thing comes after me. And it just sat there looking at me. And you talk about a totally 100% expressionless face. This thing's face did not change any. It didn't look happy, sad, mad, glad, angry, elated, nothing. I mean, it had a totally 100% neutral expression on its face. I did not feel that I was in danger. And it stood there and looked at me it was about, I'd say the thing was 7.5 to 8 feet tall, and it was a type 1, a patty type, and it was a female. And this is Niffy, my youngest German Shepherd. I think she wants to go out.
I think she wants some apple pie.
I think she's looking at it. Anyway, she's a booger dog in training. You got to learn to keep her mouth shut a little bit better.
Well, Sandy said if you didn't get in there and talk to her, that you were going to be living with the boogers.
Yeah, but anyway, we sat there and looked at each other. I realized that I wasn't any use trying to keep my eyes closed, stare out, look out the crack, because she was just sitting there looking at me. So I opened my eyes and I looked at her and for a bit and I laid still. I didn't move anything but my eyeballs. And then okay. And I figured I best not try to get up or do anything. And this probably went on the whole thing from the time I woke up till about she stood there for a couple of minutes, and then she just went walking off. I'm facing, my feet are like this way. She's facing the opposite way. And she just went walking off down past me, and off down into the next holler. And that is when I really got scared, because I felt like her mate or the alpha of that troop or something was right there close. And I sure enough was scared to move. And I lay there, and I came within a gnat's eyelash of just throwing myself off that bluff and getting out of there. And I laid there, and that may be the first time. I think that's the first time I ever talked to him. And I didn't know what to do. And so I said, look, I'm sorry I've come in your territory, and I don't want to hurt you. I don't mean you any harm. But if you'll let me get up from here and leave here, I'll get out of here as quick as I can. I won't point my gun at you. I'll keep my gun pointing at the ground, and I'll get out of here as quick as I can, and I won't come back. Like that was in about 1970. That would have been in about 70, late 70s anyway, and possibly as early as 76. More likely, probably 77 or 78. But anyway, I don't know.
That was 7
I got
years
up.
old. 7 years
I got up, and I didn't run, I wasn't looking around. I kept my eyes down, and I walked out of there straight south the fastest way I could out of there. Like I said, this was somewhere around 76, 77, 78. One of those 3 years right there. And I did not go back over there until the year before last. Right. I retired in October of 20, and we moved back. We were down here in November of 20. And the next year in 21 is the next time I went over there in that area of the farm. So I went over and tried to find that area, but all those mountain laurels are grown up like crazy, and it's now what they call a laurel hell. You can't even hardly get through there, and the carpet moss is gone and it is all growed up. But the boogers are still there. I didn't see any of them.
Wow, what a great show this has been tonight.
Yeah.
What do you think, Larry?
I think I'm hungry for brisket and apple pie. I zoned everything else out about 30 minutes ago.
Hey, I'll bring you some apple pie for some brisket. I'm probably going to fight this dog to get any of that apple pie.
I hear you.
I'm just glad to see all the folks in the chat tonight. Golly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to. I don't know if people would put in the comment section. We would like to have some type of celebration for 10,000 subscribers, and we still consider ourselves a little rinky-dink channel, but we consider everybody family and friends, and that's why we have these meet and greets, so that we're able to put a face, to a name that we see in chat. So if y'all have any ideas of what kind of show y'all would like for us to do coming up, then please put it in the comment section.
I know what Misty's wanting to do. Misty's for Woodwalkers, and I think maybe collaborate with y'all guys doing a Halloween show where we can talk about some scary stories and stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Me and Misty talked about that the other day, and I think there's a way to do that, and so we're going to definitely do something Halloween. I know Carrie Arnold used to always have a week-long of shows, counting down to Halloween, and those were always great.
Yeah.
So did y'all hit 10,000?
I think we like about 5.
Oh wow! Come on now, come on, folks.
So, but the numbers really don't matter to me. What matters to me is that somebody might be able to hear something that helps them in the field.
And
that's the main thing. If you're in the field and you've heard Greg and Kumbo talk about, a situation that was getting hairy, that's something that you can remember, is what these guys, how they handled themselves in the woods, and to be able to come out.
Yeah.
And so that's really our purpose for doing these podcasts, is to learn from each other and to share with each other.
Yeah, guys, like I told you, I've had some big name guys contact me, want me to do the shows, and I'm not all for that. Look, y'all, like I said, guys, y'all made me feel like family, and I feel like I'm in a comfortable place where I can talk and share my stuff with y'all, and hopefully maybe what I'm saying will help somebody. Like I said, I'm just an old air conditioner repair guy that polices part-time. And I've just been thrown in the middle of or drug off in the middle of these things because they came to me. I didn't go to them, and I look at where I got sidetracked a while ago about Mr. Bill White, y'all. I mean, that man helped me and helped me put a lot of pieces of puzzle together and realize that I wasn't crazy. And that, I was, it just, and maybe somebody out there that's afraid to talk to somebody, afraid of ridicule. I promise you, there won't be no ridicule from me. They ain't gonna be no ridicule from anybody here. Contact some of us. I mean, reach out, put something in the comments, and we'll try to get with y'all. I mean, if y'all had an encounter, multiple, I don't care if it's one comment.
The only ridicule you may get is if you make Cincinnati chili. I ain't about that.
There you go.
But hey, I got a homework assignment for Tim and Greg. Let's do a show about Mr. White and talk about everything that he contributed that we have all learned from. I think that would be great to do.
Brother,
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I know Mark Green will be 100% on board because Mark Green thought the world of Bill White. I mean, he was awesome.
Yeah. Bill was a big part of their group back before they we ever got hooked up with those guys. And she's up here shaking the dadgum table underneath me. But
are you sure it's her?
Do what?
Are you sure that's her? Never mind, Kumbo. Go ahead.
My sound is breaking up. But anyway, she's Bill and Mark go back further than Bill and I or Bill and Greg. Mark's been known him longer than us. But I tell you what, I used to run into Bill, even way back in the 90s on some of the forums, the old Bigfoot forums and some of those other places like that. And every once in a while he'd come on the old
Pal Talk.
He'd come on the old Pal Talk, sometimes. And I know just talking with you a little bit on Pal Talk, I figured out that was he was a sharp guy, really sharp guy, and I always want to meet him. And the one time I thought I was going to get to meet him, and a certain person messed that up, and we won't talk anymore about that. But when I finally got to meet him in person, it was all that I thought it would be and then some. No, it ain't Sandy.
There's not two people in that picture.
She's trying to. I don't know if she's HUNGRY or if she wants to go OUT. She's too spell. She wants to go out. Is what it is. Is that what it is? You want to go out? No? You don't want to go out?
Oh, mercy.
I may have to get you to take me out.
Yeah.
After all this tea I've drank, I need to go out.
Well, she was outside when the boys got to eat. When the other two German Shepherds got to eat, she was outside and wouldn't come in. Well, I didn't make her food and put it down because Joe would eat it, would snarf it up. So I got to feed her yet.
Greg, if you got Sandy's number, get her in there to get Kumbo out there with that dog.
No doubt. Yeah, we're gonna have to get off here. It's 10:50.
Yeah, we're gonna have to start paying YouTube for airtime now. We don't went over the 2 free hours.
Next time we do one like this, we're gonna all have to have a catheter.
You leave your razor blades at home.
Hey, what do y'all think? if we could G-rate that story, that'd be a hell of a Halloween story. Which
Yeah, that's a horrific story. No doubt about that.
I don't know how you G-rate it.
I don't know. I promise there'd be a lot of grown men cringing. That'd be worse than the story they were.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh Lord, I know the one you're talking about. Oh Lord,
that's a lot of pain inflicted.
I don't know if you could G-rate that, and I can tell about me jumping. I can tell about me jumping.
We'd have to label that episode as something like some type of medical something.
Well, I can tell them about jumping in that ditch with those cypress branches.
No, let's talk. You told me that earlier.
And, you didn't. I didn't tell you all of it. I drove myself 20-something miles to the hospital.
Yeah, a cypress limb stabbing you in the taint ain't nothing to brag about.
I just about bled to death. I mean, it looked like somebody slaughtered a hog or something in the front seat of my truck.
There again, I'll coin that phrase: "Man down, man down."
Yeah. Oh God,
that's a bad one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to end it tonight. We want to thank everybody that's tuned in, that watches us live or watches us later on. We appreciate each and every one of y'all.
Yep. Big
night, footers.
Good night.
See ya. Say bye, Nippy.
If you would like to support Beast TV, check out our gear. We have coffee mugs, face masks, gaiters, shirts, and tank tops. The link is pinned at the top of the comment section. Everything is always marked down 20%. So come check out our junk.
This has been a Sawdust production.